Hey everybody, I hope and pray that you're doing well today as we come to our word from the Word. And today that word is representative. Representative. That's somebody that, like that picture, right, brings two people together sometimes by representing the other. I mean, you go talk to one and kind of like an ambassador. I mean, we see that in the New Testament, right, that we are to be ambassadors for Christ. It's one who speaks the message from someone else. So as God has given us the message, we go out as his representatives and spread the gospel. And we talked about that some yesterday in our service. So to look today in Leviticus 21, Leviticus is continuing to go through these steps and processes of things showing us the holiness of God. And specifically here talking about the priests in Leviticus 21. And I'll be honest, when you read it as a preacher, right, sometimes compared to priests, it'll open your eyes to the holiness that God required, not just of the priest, but in the priest's actions and even his family. I mean, even the things that his family did come back on him as well. Now, I mean, that's still true today that, even as a pastor, as any of us that represent Christ to anyone, the things that our families do also, are a shadow or kind of an image of what we are showing them. So it's a very humbling, very eye-opening as well. Also, as you look through it, I mean, it does show you the punishment that goes along with those things. And there's some things that God doesn't allow. You'll see in here a list of defects as well from the priests. So if they have some physical deformities, that they could still do some of the duties of priests, but they couldn't come to the closest place to the Lord. And that's for a lot of different reasons, but mainly because he is holy and he requires holiness. So to look today, we're just going to look at one verse. It kind of sums it up, and we're going to talk about this word representative. So Leviticus chapter 21, looking at verse 8. Therefore you shall consecrate him, talking about the priest, for he offers the bread of your God. He shall be holy to you, for I, the Lord, who sanctify you, am holy. So you have this idea of kind of like the middleman. Now, that's kind of what that picture was I put up earlier, the middleman bridging two people together. The priest represented God to the people, right? He was the messenger. He was the kind of go-between. And then as the priest, on the other hand, turned from the people back to God, he represented the people in that way, but really he represented the people, but really the animals or the sacrifice, represented their sin. So you have all this representation that's going on. Everything that we've seen in Leviticus has a reason and has a point. You see it throughout. I mean, they were clean and unclean. You have Jews and Gentiles that were clean and unclean. You have death and life, things that were, or life and death, things that were clean and unclean. And you see how that affects our relationship, and specifically them under the law and the priest especially, as they were going in to represent the people, especially the high priest on the Day of Atonement, right? He was that go-between, that representative. Well, as we go to the New Testament, you find out that Jesus is the great high priest, right? He is the one who best represents God to us. He represents God to us as the great high priest. And also, see, Jesus, that's why he did both. He was not only the great high priest who gave the best example of Jesus, best example of who God was, the best representative of God. It was also the fact that Jesus represented us to God by laying down his life as a sacrifice. See, he became the priest and the lamb, the priest and the sacrifice. And so he represents God to us, but when God looks at us, he doesn't see us anymore. For those of us that are saved, he sees Christ. He sees that sacrifice that was made, that once for all sacrifice. Aren't you so thankful that he doesn't have to die again? Aren't you so grateful that we don't have to go back and offer sacrifices like that every time we mess up? Thankfully. The law was there to show us and show the Israelites that they could never measure up to the holiness of God. And that's why sometimes when we look at it, we say, man, that's impossible. And it's exactly right. But all things are possible through Christ. And so Christ is the great representative of God, and now even a wonderful representation of us to the Father. And I'll be honest, if you think about Christ representing us before his Father, you would think, man, that's pitiful that he would have to step in between. And it's pitiful that he has to represent my sin to the Father. But that's exactly what he did when he willingly laid down his life. The holy character of Christ. He put it all aside to take on our sin, to be a representative of that for the Father, so that his justice would be satisfied. I tell you, when you really begin to understand that, you should be that much more driven to be the ambassador that Paul talks about in Corinthians, to be an ambassador for Christ, to go out and now that he has represented God to us, that we should desire to go out and represent God and represent Christ for a lost and dying world. We talked about yesterday doing it with great tact. But look, we need to go out. We got to get out in the world and make contact first. So today, how well are you going to represent the one who died for you? God bless you, and I pray you have a great, great day.